Hi, good afternoon, and buenas tardes as well. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon again. First, I would like to thank Isabel Lázaro, the director of Art Photo Barcelona, for the invitation for this round table with Knoppers and Markha Valenta. I'm Noemí from the collective of Now You See Me Moria. And first, we decided that we were going to introduce ourselves. So yeah, maybe Kim or Markha, you can start by explaining a little bit about yourselves to the people who is seeing and hearing us in Barcelona.
Go ahead, Kim.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's quite strange to not see anyone, but I suppose you are there. I prepared a little something. Although we live in the era of the selfie and everyone has a camera on her or his phone, many people still cling to a one-dimensional perspective on important events in our history. A belief that history consists simply of what institutions and mainstream media quite often presents as facts. Besides the dominant version of the news, there are all kinds of underrepresented stories that are around but not necessarily reach the spotlights of the mainstream media and institutions, yet have strong and revealing voices of their own. Now You See Me Moria uses the power of self-representation via Instagram. The people who collectively contribute to Now You See Me Moria created a strong voice that simply cannot be ignored by institutions and media. The reason why I, Kim Knoppers, as a curator at Foam Photography Museum in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, thought it was important to create space for Now You See Me Moria was firstly because I was touched by the photographs posted on Instagram by Amir of the situation in Moria, which is not sufficiently highlighted. The second reason was because of the power of self-representation. Foam has paid a lot of attention to stories of refugees and migrants in different ways in the past, through exhibitions, articles in Foam magazine, and through extensive projects of our education department in collaboration with newcomers, in which they visually depict their own stories. But we didn't give voice yet to people who report themselves from within a camp as Moria in an exhibition. Providing a platform for photography that makes the invisible visible in many ways to a wider audience in quite a mainstream museum was the core of much of my curatorial practice at Foam over the past 10 years. I recently quit my job like 1 month ago, giving voice through photographs by professional photographers, visual artists, and amateur photographers by strategies of informing, engaging, activating, or enchanting was what my job consisted of. In this case, together with Noemí and other colleagues, I created space within Foam for the story of Now You See Me Moria in the form of an exhibition, a podcast, and in the magazine. This was my short introduction related to this.
Thank you so much, Kim. Now your time, Markha. Can you explain us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. And I didn't prepare something formal, so I'll just talk.
Your English is much better, Martha.
It better be, right, as a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
So that tells you a little bit. So I'm a transatlantic scholar. I'm an academic, originally from the U.S., from New Mexico, and now based in the Netherlands for the last 20 years. And what I look at is the ways in which globalization is changing our societies, our politics, with lots of attention to diversity politics, particularly related to race and migration, sexuality, and religion. And so I've worked in all those different kinds of areas. And what I'm especially interested in now is the ways in which citizenship is being reshaped. So the kinds of countries that we have that tie together very closely national identity and citizenship and the state are being disrupted and are becoming porous and are being reconfigured in all kinds of ways that put pressure on that also as a fantasy of belonging and of unity. And I think for some people that's something that's very fearful and that they resent and that they try to hold back. And I think that for other people, this is something that you really welcome and you see as an enrichment and you see as the future and our future as a way of building an inclusive world. And I think that the refugee camps and the asylum and migrant camps that we have now, which have criminal inhumanity taking place in front of our eyes, in the face of our justice systems that are supposed to protect them and the human rights that are supposed to protect them, are a way in which our countries are outsourcing their anger and their fear and the violence of the state onto people who are non-citizens. So I teach a course, a community engaged course on the politics of migration. And what the commitment of that course is and the work that I do is to see how we can develop grassroots citizenship initiatives that address that. And so I'm especially very, very interested and touched by the project of which Noemí is one of the members. Now You See Me Moria, because it's especially, I'm very aware from the course that I teach how difficult it is to create contact, actual interpersonal contact across those fences between migrants who are non-citizens and citizens of Europe. And this is a project that is working extremely hard to do this, is doing it very effectively. And I think this is one of the things that speaks to us to be getting these images from within the camp that now many of the state and the organizations that are in charge are trying to prevent from coming out. So this is a kind of visual speech that we are not being exposed to in terms of perspectives, in terms of experiences, and that is coming out of an alliance that itself is unusual and that also is very multinational, right? So there are people from many different countries who've responded to the call for posters and for new visual images. If you follow the timeline on Twitter, you know, you see many different languages. So that second aspect of really being able to reach out across national borders to get people engaged with this is also very special. So I think that this is a ostensibly simple project of having an Instagram feed, a very special Instagram feed that is achieving things that I'm not seeing happening in many other places. So that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you so much, Markha. Thank you so much. Well, yes, some few words about me. Well, my name is Noemí. I'm originally from Barcelona, but I'm living in Amsterdam for already 9 years. I'm a photographer myself, and yeah, with Amir last August 2020, we decided to start Now You See Me Moria, the Instagram account. Amir, it's an Afghan refugee who is living inside of the biggest European refugee camp. And well, I'm also a student of in the University of Leiden. I'm currently studying a master of in film and photographic studies. Well, I wanted to start, yes, with a short text by Gilles Deleuze that I'm going to read as well because I'm not native. And then from there we can start a little bit the talk with Kim and Markha. I'm not going to make also a very extensive explanation about the project because we already had a talk on Friday where we explained about the project, and I think it's nicer if we have time to listen to what Kim and Markha can explain, no? and to go really deep inside. Well, I would like to start with this text by Gilles Deleuze that says, what relationship is there between the work of art and communication? None at all. A work of art is not an instrument of communication. A work of art has nothing to do with communication. A work of art does not contain the least bit of information. In contrast, there is a fundamental affinity between a work of art and an act of resistance. It has something to do with information and communication as an act of resistance. What is this mysterious relationship between a work of art and an act of resistance when the men and women who resist neither have the time nor sometimes the culture necessary to have the slightest connection with art? I do not know. Malraux developed an admirable philosophical concept. He said something very simple about art. He said it was the only thing that resists death. Yeah, for us, sharing the images every day, you know, through the platform of Instagram of Now You See Me Moria, and sharing all the photos from Amir, Ali, Kotiba, Mustafa, Masuma, and because every day we have new people who is joining our collective. For us, it's like an act of resistance by not showing and feeding again the stereotype of seeing refugees as a victim who is unable to do anything and dehumanizing them. So yeah, the first question I would like to make for Markha and Kim is, would you consider the archive of Now You See Me Moria an act of resistance? And why yes, why not? And how do you think about this? Who wants to start? Markha or Kim?
What do you think, Kim?
Martha, you?
Yeah. We can take turns starting. Yeah. So yeah, so I think very much, and I think in multiple kinds of ways, in the sense that I think the way in which it positions itself very clearly, right, it very much expresses an intention to resist. And what it resists is, I think, multiple things. Is on the one hand a kind of the silencing, right? So there is the people who are working in the camps are prohibited from taking photographs in the camps. Journalists are prohibited from entering the camps. So there's a kind of embargo that's been put in place as a way of preventing simply people, Europeans and people beyond Europe, seeing what is happening within Europe. And particularly as this is, right, a violation of human rights and of humanity and of the values that are central to who we are and what we stand for. And so it's a resistance to this kind of erasure, and it's a resistance to this violation. It's a resistance to silencing, and it's a resistance to agreeing to all of this happening. And I think all of those are very, very important. And I think the final thing I would say is that all of this entails a social death that our governments have chosen, right? They are making the decisions. Our governments and policymakers are very much aware that these are in violation of human rights, and they are at the same time under tremendous political pressure. And I understand that they're under tremendous political pressure, but I don't want them to cave to it. And so right now they're caving to it, and there are too many other components of our societies that are accepting this. And the result is that we have people, children, right, who are not being educated. We have people who need healthcare who are not getting healthcare. We have people who have a right to speak, a right to make claims, a right to claim their rights. And all of this is being prevented. So yes, I see this as a resistance to all of that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Martha, you articulated this very, very well. I also think that I also consider the archive as an act of resistance. I also think it is a resistance to the way migrants and refugees are depicted to photography, and it's a very strong way of taking control over the image, the mainstream image of migrants and refugees. And in that sense, it is a very strong act of self-representation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, maybe Noemí, you could say a bit more about particularly children, the ways in which children are represented, because I know that there was a lot of thinking about that.
Yeah.
And I find it particularly striking for people who haven't seen these images, right, is that in many of the pictures, we see children either from the side or from behind or just portions of children. And that is part of, that very delicate way of how to represent, but not misrepresent.
Yeah, that was, I mean, when Amir started sharing his photos, there was only one thing that, well, like, I don't want to use the word limitation, because, but yeah, it was from a moral and ethical point of view, there was just this thing that I told to Amir, that I thought it was very important to keep the right of privacy for children, because it's children who are in an extremely vulnerable situation. And it's true that a lot of times if photographers will go there, most of the times they will accept, but they're in such a situation that, they will accept too many things that sometimes they should not. And not having the possibility to be with them, and to spend time with them, talk with the parents. I said to Amir, I think it's important that we give them that right, that many times we are not given to them, because a lot of times, if you think about images that NGOs are always sharing, most of the times they're always sharing really close-up portraits of children, and most of the times it's children who are all crying or like some kind of suffering. And now, especially with social media, you never know when a photo can become viral, or suddenly it can become an iconic photo, and maybe that child will have to live all his life with that image, as maybe like the poor child, the poor refugee. And maybe he doesn't want to live with that all his life, because that child, maybe when he's old, he hates to be seen like this, no? Like, for example, I can give the example of my grandmother, the famous portrait. That woman, it was not even her name given, and I know, like, I don't know if it's her or the daughters were really fighting that they put the name of the woman, because that woman flee to improve their life for their children, but she was always seen like the poor migrant mother, instead of a strong woman who fled to try to give a better future for their children. So she was always seen like a victim, like the representation of poverty. She with when someone will think about a migrant mother, they will think about this representation of this poor woman. And that's something that woman didn't like to live with that all her life. So that's why I said to Amir, I think it's important that when you take images of children, you do it in a way that the photo is blurry, or it's from one side or from behind, so that the child cannot be recognized. And I told him, and at the same time, it gives us this metaphor, because Europe see what's happening, but they keep doing nothing, So that's the same. You see the children, but at the same time, you don't see them, because they are blurry or from one side, or you don't see their identity. So this was a little bit the decision behind Markha.
Mm-hmm. I have a question about, because you rightly said that NGOs are using pictures from children in a frontal way, or I guess the reason why they are doing that is because they want to engage people, and they think they can engage people by using the photographs of these children. How do you, in the Now You See Me Moria project, try to engage people as much as possible? What kind of, this sounds too formal and too strategic, but what kinds of methods or strategies, again, this sounds too formal, but do you use in Now You See Me Moria to engage people?
Well, initially there was not really any kind of way of engaging as I have explained, sometimes before the project really starts as a grieving, a terrible a terrible personal situation for me of pain, of losing the love of my life and father of my son due to these stupid migration policies, so it doesn't, there was not a really thinking process before. It was just, at that moment, it was just a way to cope with pain, and it was a way to be close to Afghan culture and to photography, because whenever I'm close to Afghan culture and photography, I'm close to him. So it was a way just to be close to him. So it was not so activist or altruist, the start. Later on, of course, and very soon, once we start the project, we start looking to what people were saying, and we saw that people were like, many people were, we dislike what we see, we don't like the situation, but this is very hard, and there was like a mood of, I cannot do anything, and then the first thing that we thought, okay, we need to change that mindset, so we tried to by using the relationship, what we discussed also before with Markha, the relationship of images with text, by telling to people, you are the system. So if you are the system, you can change the system. So first it was like with words, to try to change the mindset, but especially also with the kind of images that that we will share, because when you portray someone as a victim, most of the times people is going to feel empathy, but it's going to be most of the times like a emotional empathy, where they will feel pity or sorry, or maybe they will have emotional cognitive empathy, that you can understand, well, how bad is the situation of the refugee camp, like you can understand it. But in order to act, and that's what you say, how we engage, you need to develop what the psychologists they say it's called compassionate empathy. That's the empathy where you can understand what's happening, you can relate, you can feel like the feelings, you can feel those feelings, but it makes you that it really hits you inside, that it doesn't allow you to see and do nothing. It makes you forced to do something. And that was the empathy that we were trying to provoke to people. And how we try to do it is to try to change the visual memory that people has about refugees, about what you were saying, like the mainstream. I mean, there are many photographers who have made extremely well and well think projects, where they are not feeding negative stereotypes. But it's true that if we go to a general vision of mainstream, there has been always this victimization, or always like these stereotypes of photos of powerful photographers who are coming from outside and always portraying them a lot of times, praying that reinforce a false discourse of fear, between the people, because I mean, people will be afraid to say it out loud, but many people, in the moment they think about a refugee from Afghanistan, they always connect it to terrorism, to Islam, to religion, and some of them are Muslim, others precisely they are running away from religion, but there is this link, and this is because of a lot of times how they have been represented in media. So what we tried, it was to really break first this visual image, to really shake people of seeing images that they will not think, oh, this is a refugee, we try to break this label.
Noemí, could you give an example of one of these images? Can you describe one of the images that you have I have one in mind, but maybe you can do that.
Well, I mean, it's difficult to choose one. I can tell you two at least. For example, the image of Quatiba. There is a photo that Quatiba took, that you see the landscape of the refugee camp, and you see at the same time a super beautiful rainbow. That's a photo that only someone who is there, who is experiencing that, will do that. A photographer from outside will have never taken that image, because he's in a extremely complicated space, and he wants to portray the suffering of the people, and he will portray that with a lot of good intention. But yeah, at the same time, the photo of Quativa, it makes you to connect in a different way, you know, because Quativa is seeing the beauty even in a bad space, you know, and also like the photos where they are cooking, you
Yeah.
know, they are cooking, or we share many photos of cooking because they cook every day, you know, and they play with cats and
And
they
it's something that people all over the world are doing every day.
yeah, and they play chess. I think the example of playing chess, I think it is extremely beautiful because the father of Amir, he's a chess player and he teaches Amir, and now Amir is teaching chess to many people inside of the camp. And because of the waiting, because they have to wait so many hours and so many years to have their asylum check, they play many hours chess, but it's a kind of image that you are not going to see in magazines and newspapers because it's not interested. It doesn't sell this image, this label of refugee. And I think that's an image that can make that people who are playing chess, they can say, oh, wow, I also play chess. And then you can relate and see that you have something in common. And that thing of having in common, suddenly at some point, you can start seeing yourself in the images and connect in a human way more than the other kind of images. So that's a little bit the approach that we try. But now I'm curious, which image were you thinking, Kim?
No, actually, you already mentioned it. That you mentioned that there are a lot of images of cooking, and I was thinking about the image of a teapot on a fire or something.
Ah, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, that struck. That really struck me. It's very, and also a lot of like, yeah, it sounds strange, but a lot of the images are very normal. You know, of course they are not normal because the background and is not normal, but the life is like you said, they are cooking, they're drinking the tea, playing chess, but of course there's also the horrible side of it. But I think that is it's for me it's this specifically the combination or the contrast between that is what strikes me.
Yeah, I think maybe it makes like instead of creating like a distance, you know, it creates like a bridge, you know, so that I mean I like a lot because yeah, we are having this now a collaboration with Elisava University, and one of the teachers was saying that as more as he is looking to the photos now of the bread, he starts thinking, oh, they are like me, you know. And the day that he said, oh, they look like me, they are like me, I was super happy because I thought this is precisely how they are. They are like us, you know. The only thing is that they had the terrible circumstances of born in countries where there is violence or where they have war and they have to escape that, you know. So that I was super happy when he was feeling recognized himself in the images. And I think it's yes, by sharing those little boring moments that maybe they are not interesting, but it allows you to connect.
I mean, I think the images that are the strongest are the ones that really capture the normality of life in the context of abnormal circumstances and settings, right? And there was one, I was thinking, in addition to the one with the rainbow over the tents and with the dirt, you know, you see that it's a camp. So you get that tension between, you know, the beauty of the rainbow and the pleasure that always gives to see a rainbow, and then in the context of the camp. And then another one was there was one of two children with I think rollerblades, right? And each child had one rollerblade. And the text next to it was saying, well, these children, they're growing up and they're very used to the camp. For them, this is normal and they're adapted and they find ways to play. But that itself is problematic. I mean, who wants to have a child that is well adapted to an inhumane camp? Right. So the normality of having two young children, you know, sharing these rollerblades and sort of very sweetly playing together like that. But in the context of a setting where they shouldn't even be. And I think the images that capture that, which gives us, you know, it gives a viewer who's not in those settings an entryway in being able to identify or respond warmly to the images, or the birthday cake. There was somebody, right, whose 14th birthday it was. Well, so everybody has a birthday. And so that being able to respond, and that gives you an entryway and then brings you into the setting. Yeah, so I think that tension between those two is very important in terms of capturing the humanity, but on the terms of, you know, the camp and the camp inhabitants. So it's not an image of victims, but of human beings and of agency, without losing sight of what's abnormal about the images that we're seeing.
Yeah, because also that there was also this week they also shared one photo of one person who is growing tomatoes, you know, in the tent. He has, outside of the tent, he has created like a garden, and he's growing tomatoes, you know. But you see, of course, you see the tomatoes, and you see the tents, and you also see like some kind of fence, you know. So at the same time you see the tomatoes growing, but also in the context of where those tomatoes have to grow, you know. And also like it makes you maybe think like, yeah, this person, because yeah, European Union, when they send them to this camp, they told them, you are going to this, to your temporal accommodation. You should go to your temporal accommodation. You know, one of the things we were always saying, why they always have this ambiguous language. What do you mean with temporal? How long it's temporal? Because that person has been able to plant seeds of tomatoes, and now the tomato is big, and the tomatoes are I mean, the plant of tomatoes grow, and now they have tomatoes. So how temporal is the accommodation, no? That someone has the time to plant, grow, and take and eat those tomatoes, you know. It makes you question a lot this, what they were meaning with temporal accommodation in September, you know, and we're already in end of July, and that person who grew the tomatoes is still in his temporal accommodation, you know. And I think those images allows you, yeah, to see also this double, double line. I think it's correct, yeah, double line, yeah.
I have a question, Noemí. Do you think that the question in terms of what of audience responses, is it enough to get people to see differently, or is it important that seeing differently has to be connected to acting differently? And with the acting differently, I have in mind there's a group in the Netherlands who some time ago they set up, they're called, in Dutch they were called We're Going to Go Get Them, right? And they, you know, chartered a plane, and they were going there, and like, okay, we're just, you know, our government isn't doing, we're going to do it. And then they were blocked from doing that, right? But they tried to have a very direct intervention, because it's very clear, right? This situation is not going to significantly change within a short amount of time, right? If you're talking about how long is temporary, we know, you know, we know from everything we see that it's not temporary. It's very much institutionalized. And it's going to take a long, long fight and many different kinds of struggles to change. What gives you a sense then that it's effective, or that it is worth having hope, that the project is worth doing? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that we only have to see the response that we had with the posters, for example. I mean, in January, after 6 months of being working with the project, is when we start seeing a change of mood, you know. At least people were contacting us, and they were telling, oh, we want to organize demonstrations, you know. So we start seeing people like complaining more, and like try to take action by organizing demonstrations. That's a way.
Sorry to interrupt you, but can you like briefly in 3 or 4 sentences explain what this call to action was for people who didn't attend the talk on Friday?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Well, basically in January, yeah, because people were wanted to organize demonstrations, we thought, yeah, maybe it would be nice to offer them some visual material for the demonstrations. So then we decided to make an open call looking for graphic designers with the idea to create posters using the photos of Amir, Ali, Mustafa, and Quatiba by then. And then, yeah, first we thought about looking one graphic designer, but after a talk with Bas Vroeg, my teacher, he said, yeah, maybe you can try to look for 2 or 3. And then we said, okay, maybe just let's make an open call in Instagram in the account, and maybe we have 3, 4 persons who will reply. And then suddenly we had this overwhelming and lovely and amazing response that more than 500 graphic designers across Europe and even from China, Sudan, Costa Rica replied that they wanted to create a poster. I think that was one of the moments that we realized that we were really connecting to people to do something, you know. And I think sometimes it's because it's, as you said, Markha, this is something so complicated to change that people feel frustrated, you know, like, oh, this is very hard and I cannot do anything. Or I'm not the kind of person who goes to a demonstration, you know. But I think by giving, in this case, it was to the community of graphic design, no, to use their creativity, you know, to their tool, no, to do something, you know, to try to change the situation. It was like a first step to make people realize we are not looking for heroes who can change everything. Only if from your side, that it can be graphic design, but if you are a painter, you can do it. Maybe painting. If you are a carpenter, I don't know if it's correct in English. The person who works with wood, maybe you can do it with. You can find a way to do that and create fences in your city with wood. I mean, there is so many ways that you can do something from your side, from your small side, you know. And from your small side, if you do something and everyone is doing that, at the end we have to change, you know. So that was this call came, and then yeah, we had this big response, and yeah, suddenly we realized, yeah, people want to do something, you know, and to engage and do more actions, not only us. And now there is much more groups that also they are having different ideas and very nice ways to try to engage. The only thing I think it's sometimes is good to try to think and find an approach that is going to make people to react, you know. And by using the posters, also what we were trying is to because we were having people following the project, but we wanted to reach to those ones who don't know about the project, you know, to the citizens who are against refugees, you know, who has fear, and they have this fear because of how media is portraying refugees most of the times, to try to confront them using public space, you know, to confront them with the situation so that they cannot escape, you know. And we say, okay, you don't come to us, we go to you and we put you the posters. That was a little bit how we try to do it, and yeah, I think it worked very well with the posters. And yeah, and also because of all the graphic designers were so amazingly generous, you know, because we tried that the design, that the author, no, like the graphic designer doesn't go above of what's really happening, you know. And yeah, now all the posters are being used in the book, in multiple exhibitions, and yeah, all the graphic designers they give it for free, you know. And that's extremely generous. And I'm not saying that we should create art for free, you know, because I don't want now to. But I mean that in that case it was something, an act of love towards Moria, you know, to all the people in Moria and in refugee camps.
What I find, if I may respond, what I find very strong is that you managed with collectively to create a very strong voice that is able to make your point of view clear to mainstream media and institutions, which are, like, when I speak about foam, in the past we did a lot of exhibitions with photographers depicting the refugee crisis on many levels. but we never worked with people. Not, it's not completely true, but now it's better to say that. Never worked with people from the camp with their images, and I think we, or me, were interested in that, but it's also very difficult, or of course you need to spend time, but to find this people. And you were able to collectively create this voice, and by using Instagram and by sharing and by building your network, to grab the attention of and create your own platform within platforms. Because we collaborated at FOAM, and you also collaborate with the festival in Barcelona, with the Nederlands Fotomuseum, with Stedelijk, with many more international venues. But you do that on your own terms, and I find that very, very strong.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's just based on because of my personal experience, you know, because through the father of my son, I have met so many persons, you know, and I have known their stories, and I have known things that I didn't know myself, you know, and I discovered through him how much pain it brings them, the forced migration, all the things they have to go through, you know, and every person I have met, and they explain their speech, it really stays on me, you know, and I was a point that was also tired of seeing that they are being used, you know, because they are used first by the smugglers and then by media, you know, and they are used by so many people that I was just fed up, you know. I thought I'm not going to use them, you know. I'm going to, yeah, I just want to find a way where they are there and there is nothing else, you know, that there is no one else. They should be the only ones there, you know, their stories, their voice, what is happening to them, and we should find a way. Because I was just really tired, you know, of seeing projects and photos and nothing changed, and projects and photos and nothing changed. And I'm not saying that we are going to be successful in changing. Maybe we will not, but at least, yeah, we are happy to see that we are moving people to do something. And I'm sure, yeah, we are at least changing mindsets of people, you know, and hopefully by changing those mindsets, you know, we want to shake them inside, and that they start realizing why we need these borders and fences. I mean, why we are afraid of, you know, and I think many people should start questioning themselves why we fear refugees and migration, why we fear them, you know, from where is this fear coming from? You know, because fear is not something that it's innate. Fear is something you learn. How you learn to fear a refugee, how you learn that, where did you learn that? And I think that's something people should start questioning themselves, you know, because, yeah, I think most of the people who have fear, they don't have ever met a refugee, you know, they don't know them. And I think if they will have the opportunity to meet them, they will realize how amazing persons they are, and how hard it's to leave everything behind. And especially now that we are all realizing, that the climate change is happening. I mean, we only have to go to what happened in Germany, some days ago, you know, and south of the Netherlands and Belgium. I think we should start as a society realizing that, I mean, we are not so far to maybe be ourselves refugees, and maybe our children or maybe our grandchildren, you know. And yeah, how different it was, the flooding in Germany to the flooding that we saw in Moria. It's not different, you know. But it's start people realizing that we cannot keep accepting that people it's treated like this, you know. On Friday there was we wanted that they give an action book to one of the persons of the municipality of Barcelona, and the person came and just give me the book, but I have to go. She didn't even stay to hear, to listen, you know. That's what politicians are doing. They are not listening, you know. And we as citizens should make them to listen, because if we make them to listen, they will change the situation. They will be forced, because we are voting, you know. The people now inside of the camp, I think all the people from the collective are doing the most they can do. That is share happening and but they cannot do more because they don't have the power to vote. If they will have the power to vote, or it will be very different, but they don't have that power. So the ones who have the power to vote are the ones who should keep telling to the politicians, no, I don't accept you keep treating them like this. No, I don't accept it. It's over. Like in the past, it happened with Black communities, with many other things related to women, and yeah, and luckily things have changed, because at some point a group said no, and no, it's no, and I'm not going to let it happen more. And I think we need to still make that step, that we don't keep letting people being treated like this, that children are committing suicide, and a pregnant woman of 9 months try to commit suicide. How desperate emotionally you should be to kill yourself when you are pregnant of 9 months, and yeah, and that's killing people. They are killing people, but they don't use weapons, they don't use a gun, they don't use a knife. They are killing them mentally, but they are killing them. And I think we should start to tell you are killing very clearly.
I have a follow-up question for Kim, because Noemí, what you were saying, because I think so one is, how do you change people's minds and people's what they see and what they feel, people who are afraid and people who are inactive or who are just blocking it out. But I think there's also, in addition to that, there's also the challenge of how do you change things when you want to create change, but you feel powerless, or you're trying, but it's not necessarily working the way you want. And I was very struck by, Kim, what you said about that you as a curator, you'd created different kinds of exhibits about refugees and migrants, but you hadn't worked with people who themselves were in the camps and were being detained. And so this is something that really appeals to you. What I'm wondering is, now that, for example, you've been in the panel and you have the within foam the context of that exposure, do you think as you continue as a curator that you'll go to work differently, that pressures you to do that, and if so, in what way?
Mm-hmm. If so, or in what way, I don't know. But I think my way of working in the museum was always trying to work with as much as possible people who are also depicted in photographs, or scholars who are very close in touch with doing research, interviews, things like that. But I think the last 3 or 4 years, I became a bit more, how do you say, ontevreden, dissatisfied with the way of working in a museum. And I'm not saying that it's always the same. There are exceptions, but for me it felt a bit distant to communities, like you were telling about your the course, and how you teach about grassroots initiatives. I had more and more the feeling that we also need to go more as a museum, and I think foam is quite open to that, more and more into that direction as a museum. And I think, for example, in the education department, it is already quite rooted. But in the exhibition department, it can be, rooted more. Mm-hmm. Is that an answer to your question, Marva?
Yeah. I mean, because I find that very interesting, and I agree. I think there's a tremendous hunger, and I think in a lot of our institutions, right? So I think the community engaged course really speaks to where students are at. Students are very, very responsive, and we've been developing multiple community engaged courses that are letting our students go out and really grapple, not from within the walls of an institution. And I think, like Noemí, I'm wondering if that might not be the place where we see right now more change happening and more pressure happening than in our politics and in voting, right? So there's a kind of tension, and I'm thinking about this also as somebody, who works on questions of social mobilization, and so as a scholar, right, I think about politics a lot. And the thing is that, I mean, because we're getting to the end of the hour, but part of what's so difficult of mobilizing on behalf of migrants and refugees is that they are not in and of themselves a community, right? So when you talk about the camp and who you're working with, right, they're coming from many different countries, they're speaking different languages. In the course that I teach, that's one of the things that's difficult, because you can't just go, to I mean, in some cases you can, but very often in the Netherlands, it's very difficult to just go, to the Afghan Dutch community. Who is the Afghan, right? And there definitely is not, let me go to the undocumented migrant community. There are a few movements here and there and a few groups, right? But there's a lot more sort of NGO and organizational type entities. And in the US, you have the Dreamer movement, for example, right? So young people who were brought as very, very young people to the United States, who are not citizens, often grew up thinking they were just citizens, and then when they're 18, discover they're not. And there's been a very active movement. So it's an identity, it's a movement, it has a set of, claims that it's making, and it's been recognized by politicians as a movement and a community. But here in Europe right now, we don't really have that. So yeah, so I'm not sure. So when you say, okay, how can we get people to vote differently? I don't know, if, I mean, what I find most powerful about what you're doing is, what you offer somebody like curators, and, students and activists. And, I saw images of, people in Berlin putting up your action posters, and, people in Spain, and people, so that I think is just amazing. And yeah, I'm not sure if classic politics is going to create the changes we want.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we try. I mean, what we try with the action book, we didn't want that, because after the campaign is when we started some museums and institutions know that they wanted to create exhibition with the photos and with the posters. But yeah, we thought, why to only give that opportunity to a museum, and we thought, why not to try to create something that anyone can use it and create their own exhibition. I think in the project we are quite radical in some things. One is that we try that there is not really the concept of author. It's gone. We are a collective. It doesn't matter who is doing that, who is doing what. It's what it's important. It's the goal. And also, yeah. Today you didn't hear there was a talk by Uriol Miñarra. It's a Spanish photographer, and I like it a lot because he was saying that that he will die, but what he wants. For him, what is important is that what's happening in the photos, it remains, not who is the author. So I like it a lot to hear that, from him, and that's the same for us. It doesn't matter who. It's the goal, our message. It's what we want to get, and also in what we are radical is that we should allow everyone to be able to do it. So you need to create something that anyone can do it, and we didn't want to become something like to give the power to only a certain group of people can do it, or so we are really decentralized, and we thought sometimes being decentralized can be challenging, because you lose control, but at the same time losing that control gives a lot of power to so many people who are now doing other things or creating other things with exactly the same goal. I think sometimes what it will be important, and we always try to engage in more collaborations, you know, and with more people. I think it's what you said, there is like multiple groups, but they are like separated. And then you lose power by not being together.
Mhm.
And I think maybe in the future, it would be nice to try to join smaller groups and try to join all of us together with the same goal, you know, and leave the egos behind, because most of the times that's the problem, you know. It's at some point people is like, I did this or I'm this, and I think we should really put the egos behind and then unite all these groups with the same goal, and then we can really make it happen. I think that's the way, and at least we are going to try to keep doing like this, and especially try to go through education. I think, yeah, we have to start finishing. I don't know if there is any questions. Isabel, let me see. No, okay, they say there is no questions. Okay, they don't have questions. Yeah, there is no time. Yeah, there is no more time for questions. Okay, no problem. Well, thank you. It was such a big pleasure, Kim and Markha, to talk with you. And thanks so much for your time and yeah, all the things you explained. I think it was really, really, really nice to hear you. And yeah, I hope we can meet soon, because we are in the same country and city, but we didn't meet yet because of Corona.
Physical, yeah, that's true.
Yes.
And thank you, Noemi, not on behalf of myself, but on behalf, yeah, on what you are doing with the Now You See Me Moria collective, and also the other ones, because I think it's really important. And like I said, you managed to create a strong voice, and I think this voice is becoming stronger, even stronger in the future. So keep up the good work.
Yeah, we will try. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and from me too. I joined Kim and everything she just said.
Okay, goodbye Barcelona, and goodbye Kim and Markha.
Goodbye.
Bye.